Welcome to our news, and thank you for joining us. I'm Italia Hall. Topping news tonight, National Security Minister Wayne Munro again defending the decision to deploy Bahamian police officers to the Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, Munro suggests the crime issue there is a threat to the Bahamas as he hit back at criticism from the F&M. Berthany McDermott has the details.
We are sufficiently concerned as to whether or not it's impacting the Bahamas and potentially can impact the Bahamas in the future, that we have seen this action as necessary. You don't actually wait until the matter is on your doorstep if you can head it off before it arrives.
That was the National Security Minister's response when asked if the crime situation in the Turks and Caicos is a national security threat to the Bahamas. Wayne Munro's comments come after 20 police officers were deployed to TCI last week. Munro says the officers are all from the intelligence branch of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Munro also hitting back at Free National Movement leader Michael Pintard, who in a statement called the recent deployment distinctly different.
It's surprising that nobody from the opposition, which is what I would think would happen, would come and ask simple questions. What is the makeup of the officers that you deployed to the Turks and Caicos? So, for instance, are they from your security and intelligence branch? Are they from your criminal intelligence branch? What is the makeup of it? They have not asked, but yet they comment and purport to criticize.
Pintard contends the Davis administration is struggling to address the bloodshed in the country, adding that the administration is slow and weak in explaining the overall plan for crime prevention. To that, Munro said this:
We have, for national security reasons, not been explicit, and I see the leader of the opposition doesn't seem to understand that if I tell you all what the officers are there to do, we're also telling the criminals what the officers are there to do. So I don't grasp how they did national security, but how we do national security is we do not arm our enemy with information.
Munro, however, gives the assurance that the country's national interest is being addressed in the Turks and Caicos. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Now, the tourism minister painting the harsh reality of the potential impact of increased crimes against tourists and what it could mean for the country's #1 industry. He says while crimes against Bahamians are awful, crimes against tourists would have a negative economic impact. Berthany McDermott reports.
A crime against a Bahamian is horrific. A crime against a tourist is simply a stupid thing to do.
Deputy Prime Minister and Tourism Minister Chester Cooper weighing in on the potential fallout of crime on the tourism product. Cooper's comments follow those of Prime Minister Philip Davis, who on Monday told reporters he doesn't think the current crime situation will result in any fallout. While there have been no recent major crimes against tourists, Cooper put quite bluntly the potential consequences.
In effect, what we would be doing is biting the hand that feeds us. I said during the budget debate, 60 cents out of every dollar that we get comes from tourism. We are reliant on tourism for our very way of life. We've maintained a high quality and standard of living, and therefore it boggles the mind that anyone would seek to kill the goose or hurt the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Now, while a recent notice by the U.S. State Department recognizes that crime is an issue on Nassau and Paradise Island, the tourism minister making it clear that there are other islands for tourists to visit.
We have 14 other destinations, and had they been rated differently, I would imagine that all of the others would be level 1 or not even rated at all. So the fact of the matter is that, there are criminal elements in pockets in our community.
6 murders were recorded last week, adding to the triple-digit murder count. Today, Cooper making it clear that any crime is bad for the Bahamas and tourism.
We must do all we can as Bahamians to manage this issue. If we see something, we say something. And of course, we find a way to settle our grievances and our differences in a harmonious manner.
Thanks, Berthany, for that report. A teenager is facing charges in connection with the attempted armed robbery of a grocery store and the attempted murder of an off-duty policeman. Prosecutors say 18-year-old Lara Tornio Mackey shot 28-year-old Horace Albury Jr. while trying to rob John Shea and Sons No. 2 on October 4th. The teenager is also accused of conspiring with an unnamed person to commit the armed robbery, as well as possession of a 9mm pistol and 5 unfired rounds of 9mm ammunition. Mackey was not required to enter pleas to the charges when he appeared before Magistrate Samuel McKinney. Bail was denied and he was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services until December 16th for the presentation of a voluntary bill of indictment. Now, Mackey told the court that he needed to see a doctor because police officers had beaten him to force him to confess. McKinney made a note of his complaints and told Mackey that he would be examined by a doctor upon admission to the prison. A jury was selected in the murder trial of Donna Vasily. Prosecutors allege that Vasily, responsible for the March 24, 2015 stabbing death of her husband, renowned podiatrist Dr. Philip Vasily, at their home in Old Fort Bay. Vasily has denied the murder charge at her trial before Senior Justice Bernard Turner. She's represented by Katie Knight, KC, Damon Gomez, KC, and Owen Wells. Abigail Farrington and Sophia Pinder-Moss are the prosecutors in the case. The National Insurance Board seeing a major decrease in the amount of money paid out for unemployment benefits. State Minister with responsibility for NIB, Miles Rhoda, telling reporters today that there's been a $5 million drop when compared to previous years. Rhoda says officials are hopeful the downward trend will continue.
National Insurance is paying out about $610,000 per month. If we do the figures over the past few years, it's around 12 million. So at this pace, we're looking at between $7 and $8 million would be the figure.
Partly sunny skies in the capital today. Meteorologist Greg Thompson gives us a closer look at our current conditions. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks, Natalia, and a happy Tuesday evening, everybody. Another quiet evening outside our studios right now. Temperatures are in the mid-80s, 85 with a few clouds. Your winds are out of the east-northeast at around 10 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature hanging at around 86. Satellite view, quiet across the islands. High-pressure ridge is in charge at the surface, keeping us quiet more or less, not much in terms of any rainfall in the forecast. We do have some high-level clouds moving out of the Gulf of Mexico across our area, not really producing any rainfall, but there is a front to the north across North Florida that we expect to get near sometime by late this week, so we could see an increase of some shower activity across our area by then. That's a quick look at our weather. Stick with us. Your extended forecast and a look at the tropics is still to come.
Still to come on our news, the new education director lays out her plans for the next few years. And teachers at the Thelma Gibson Primary School return to the classrooms. We'll tell you what it means for their gripes with the principal. Plus, why the deputy PM says financial services is not a political issue. That's coming up when our news returns. A new director of education is at the helm, replacing the former director, Marcellus Taylor, who's held the position for the past 4 years. In this report, Jamila Mizik takes a look at what she hopes to accomplish in her new role.
The new education director, Dominique McCartney-Russell, says she is ready to hit the ground running. Russell, who previously served as the district superintendent for Abaco and the Keys, says teamwork will be key.
I have worked in Abaco, Andros, Grand Bahama, and New Providence, and I'm a firm believer that every single child has a right to an education, whether they are in New Providence or they are in Acklands. And I have been a fighter for our children because I want, at the end of the day, that they're able to take care of themselves. And as we have seen, our children have been out of school, some of them for 3 years, out of the brick and mortar. And so it is incumbent upon all of us to work together as a team.
Now, the new education director says her main concern now is listening to the issues at hand and addressing them as effectively as possible.
Teachers have the greatest effect on student achievement, and so we ought to work on ourselves. And so for me, that's my greatest concern. But beyond that, I would like to address some of the issues that I have been hearing. One of the greatest assets any leader can have is to be able to listen, because our members are saying some things, and if we listen, we could perhaps make some real changes that will build staff morale so that they're motivated to do their jobs.
Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin thanking the former director, Marcellus Taylor, for his service over the last 4 years.
He has moved to the University of the Bahamas, where he is a policy fellow, senior policy fellow, and he will be substantively contributing to public policy for national development in the years ahead. And we wish him the best, and we thank him for his service to this ministry.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
Thanks, Jamila. Teachers at the Thelma Gibson Primary School have returned to the classroom. Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin confirming their return, saying she personally spoke to teachers. This comes as members of the Bahamas Union of Teachers have called for the removal of the school's principal. Since then, the principal has requested vacation leave beginning today, and the ministry has accepted that request.
We're moving on. We cannot get bogged down in these kinds of things. We have to bring resolution and keep moving, because there is a huge, substantial issue that we're facing. And we don't know what these things are leading to in terms of social deterioration. We have to get this right. If we don't get this right, all of us, ain't no one special, all of us will feel the brunt of this deficiency and this deficit. We have to get on top of it. So where we have disputes, we try to understand the full story, which is what I sought to do. And having understood it, certain steps, we move forward.
The World Health Organization's Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization releasing highlights from their most recent meeting that was held last week. In a press conference this morning, SAGE officials say they reviewed a range of vaccine policy issues, including WHO's interim guidance on monkeypox vaccination, its immunization agenda 2030, and variant-containing COVID-19 vaccines. When it comes to COVID, they are taking a deeper look at vaccines that focuses on specific variants, says Chairman Alejandro Craviotto.
They're escalating both in number, they're escalating in the number of countries, and they're escalating in the size of the outbreaks. And so we're watching the fire sort of coming towards us, if I can kind of put it that way. And the real alarm bell is that this is going to end up in a huge number of outbreaks, a huge number of children who will be affected by measles, and it will result in deaths, and a large number of deaths, unless action is taken.
There are currently 4 variants containing vaccines for COVID-19. When it comes to what the data says, Dr. Craviotto says SAGE is still breaking down the statistics.
The immediate actions are needed by governments and by partners to be accelerated and to really be deployed in countries with great urgency, so that we don't end up here in 3, 4, 5 months saying now we're in a situation that's one of the worst that we've ever seen, because of course these outbreaks are measured by the lives of children for the most part, and those are completely avoidable deaths of children because we have vaccines that work, but those vaccines do need to be deployed.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Ahead on our news, DPM Chester Cooper weighs in on the European Union blacklisting the Bahamas financial services.
Well, in sports tonight, perfection in anything, in particular sports, is near to impossible. That's why what the UB Mingos is doing right now, albeit in a short form, is pretty amazing. So far, they are undefeated in play in the Bahamas Football Association. We'll tell you all about that and so much more coming up in sports.
Fighting cancer may be tough, but one fifth grader is transforming the care center for kids at PMH. We'll show you how when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. Weeks after the Bahamas was blacklisted, Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper maintains the Bahamas is a well-regulated jurisdiction for financial services and in many instances more regulated than some countries in the European Union. The EU says the country's move to the blacklist is due to the Bahamas' failure to satisfy deficiencies relating to compliance actions and exchanges of information over its economic substance regime. Cooper says he's always maintained there seems to be an attack on the Bahamas.
I reiterate that the financial services clients that are leaving the Bahamas are going to large jurisdictions like the USA and the UK and elsewhere. And it is my view that the Bahamas is very well regulated and in many instances more regulated than some of the countries in the EU itself.
Cooper also explaining financial services is not a political issue.
We maintain that when it came to financial services and foreign affairs matters, that politics ended at the border, and there ought to be a consolidated approach to these matters. The FNM, though, seem to have taken a different view. They're politicizing the issue, and I believe it's unhelpful, and they ought to seek relevance in some other domain.
With the local soccer season now underway, the UB Mingos continue to be the team to beat as they remain unbeaten over the weekend. Marcellus Hall has the latest in sports. Marcellus?
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Through 3 games in the Bahamas Football Association, and one team remains unblemished. That team, the UB Mingos, putting that record on the line on Sunday. Let's see exactly how they did. UB Mingos soccer side, they've been prolific in scoring in their first 2 matches of the season, hoping for the same against the Baja Juniors FC in BFA action on Sunday. Scoring just not there in the first half, as after the first 45 minutes, it was a 0-0 tie. The Mingos had scored a combined 6 goals in the first half of the first 2 matches of the season. Coming out of the half, though, Mingos picking up the score in the 51st minute. Corner kick by Nathan Wells. That gave Rodane Lamore his first goal of the season. Mingos taking a 1-0 lead. Nathan Wells, his speed paying off for the Mingos in the 61st minute. Wells intercepting a lazy pass from Baja Juniors near the penalty box. Easy unassisted toe shot to give the Mingos a 2-0 advantage. Lamore, though, wasn't done on the afternoon. In the 89th minute, Lamore feeling a loose ball near the center, fired the long pass to give Ricardo Walsh the opportunity for a bending strike right past the Baja Junior FC keeper. Lamore picking up the assist as the Mingos went up 3-0. The eventual final score as the match ended seconds later. Mingos now sporting a 3-0 record in the league.
I was disappointed in the way the guys played today. Happy with the win. We had some freshmen step up in the second half, Rodane Lamour in particular, and RJ, who's not a freshman, but came on late and scored a big goal for us. So on a day where our typical key players were a bit lacking, we had role players step up, and I think it was huge for the team.
And there it is. You look at sports for you here on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Still ahead on Our News Tonight, a young philanthropist helps to make a difference for kids fighting cancer. And later, plan your week with meteorologist Greg Thompson. That's coming up when Our News returns.
Supporting working mothers, and fathers.
Artists.
Entrepreneurs and small business owners.
Helping Bahamians, young and old, to put their homes together from the doors, windows, walls, cabinets, and much more.
Introducing our brand new professional paint line, Global Paint, at manufacturer prices. Bringing Bahamians a paint that's compatible with hot, saltwater climates like the Bahamas. With a computerized coloring system, leaving no room for error. Get it at AID. All you really need and more.
Welcome back to our news. A chance of rain this week. Greg Thompson is back in the Weather Center with your extended weather outlook. Greg?
Thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody. Of course, we're taking a look at our water vapor imagery that shows quite a bit of moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, all associated with a disturbance in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico that the National Hurricane Center is continuing to monitor. Has a medium to high chance for formation over the next 24 to 48 hours, but likely continue moving towards the west, should run into Mexico and weaken. We don't anticipate that system getting to hurricane status, but it is possible that it could do that. To the north of us, a frontal boundary with some moisture associated with that across Florida. That's going to be sagging down towards the area. We expect that frontal boundary to drop into our area by the end of the week. So we're looking for some increasing chances for showers and thunderstorms by then across the northwest Bahamas. Once again, that disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of convection associated with that blowing up at this time. Expected, as I mentioned, to continue moving towards the west and into Florida. The remainder of the tropics quiet, a couple of tropical waves out there, and tropical cyclone formation is not expected through the next 5 days. Boating forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight to tomorrow. Winds will be east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots, seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Your high tide will be at 9:45 tonight. For the southeast Bahamas, we're asking you boaters down to use a little bit caution. Easterly winds at 15 knots, they could be gusting higher times. Your seas will be running 3 to 5 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day forecast, of course, as I mentioned, the frontal boundary is expected to sag towards that area, should get to near the northwest Bahamas by the end of the week. So increasing rain chances for both Thursday into Friday, and then that frontal boundary expected to wash out. High pressure will build in. We're looking for some pleasant weather for the beginning of next week. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
Thanks, Greg. The Children's Oncology Ward of the Princess Margaret Hospital unveiled a new mural and updated Children's Corner thanks to the Blue Rose Foundation and a very special donor, Marlena Leonard reports.
It's a room of life and hope, and when children come here now and to receive their treatment, they have something to look at, they can be entertained, they can read books, just to be inspired. You know, they can be hopeful, be in a positive space, positive environment, positive attitude, and we hope that the words on the wall that are spreading through the orange leaves, orange is the color of leukemia, the orange petals of the roses, and the powerful words as they spread across the room, we just want them to capture in their hearts as well.
The mural, painted by Alan Wallace, was commissioned by the Blue Rose Foundation and sponsored by Bahamas Harvest Church and FTX. And there's also a new children's library. The contents were donated by 5th grader Delia Colmer, who sold pins and did a book drive at her school.
It was important because I felt like the children with leukemia really needed something with their treatment while they're getting it.
And Colmer didn't stop there. She also told family members that instead of getting her Christmas presents this year, she wanted them to help her get donations for the Children's Corner. And her fundraising was so successful, she was able to donate a television for the kids.
I decided to do it so they could have something to watch while they're getting their treatment, to take their mind off their treatment while they're having it.
Pediatric oncologist Dr. Corinne Sinqui commended the young philanthropist's efforts.
I'd like to thank my little dear friend there who donated the books and invite her to periodically come by and visit our corner. And it will be good to have a little plaque on the bookshelf just to acknowledge that you and your organization, you and your special partners donated all of those things. So well done, and I wish we had more people like you.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
And thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Now stay tuned as the Prime Minister will now give a national address. It will also be streaming on the Our News Bahamas Facebook page.